Welcome to the TEConnect podcast. I'm John Martin.
And I'm Dean Reverman.
We're back with some TEC Bytes.
Yes, sir.
I haven't decided what the subtitle for this one's going to be yet. If you haven't noticed by now, I'm coming up with clever subtitles.
Yes.
So
Well, you're a little behind.
Well, no, I mean, I usually make these things up like a week out. So.
TEC Bytes.
my
We just need to
creative
say it cooler. Virtual water cooler.
Virtual water cooler,
There you go.
yes.
All right.
So if you're not familiar with this series, this is where Dean and I just sit around and talk about some of the hot topics in news, tech, entertainment, just whatever. Some interesting stories we've come across.
Some are really important, some not so much. But everybody needs something to talk about. Come on.
So we decided to share them with each other, have our own little water cooler here, and you have to listen. So, sorry.
But you're getting educated at the same time.
You are. And this, as we always say, this is good stuff that maybe you could talk about with your customers.
100%.
Like, hey, man, I heard on this podcast, these guys are talking about blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Or when you're with the family next time, you're watching whatever sporting event, or you need something to break the ice. Maybe it's that uncle that you don't get along with very well.
Exactly.
We got the story that maybe you can chime in here.
You don't want to talk about politics again, so throw something else out.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing today. We've got, 6, 7 good articles?
Yeah, we got some good ones here. Yeah.
We're going to dive into those. We'll give you a little value to the VAR here connected with it. What's TEConnecting with us?
I don't know that there's any value to the VAR, but we'll see.
Either, but we'll find out. We make it up sometimes.
Yeah.
It's time to plug in and get connected.
Welcome to the TEConnect podcast. It's time to get connected.
All right. Let's just get into it.
Yes, sir.
The first story is one you threw out here, the mystery of never COVID.
I know, right? So wouldn't this be nice if you never got COVID?
I mean,
apparently,
I haven't yet, I don't think.
some people,
I know, I haven't.
Some people don't get COVID despite being exposed to the virus, right? So we're all done with this thing. But apparently, in Britain, they ran a little bit of a human challenge study, highly debated method of doing it, but they did it, where they actually exposed 34 people to the COVID, the SARS-CoV-2 in their nose, and they found that 16 of those 34 did not get infected, even though
pretty impressive number,
right? That's like, I don't know, it's got to be close.
6, I would have thought like, man, that's a pretty good ratio there.
If I
16 is huge.
16's huge, right? So it's like now it's like there's this debate. Well, are just some people don't get COVID, right? Whereas half the population, well, everybody thinks that they can get it, right? But apparently, and obviously this is not scientific at all. They make that there's no, this is not a big enough sample size. 34 people is not a big enough sample size to do anything about it. But what it did, they did draw from why it matters. Well, it matters because there's various possibilities on how people are protected against being, infected by it.
Right.
And they did rattle off a couple things here that are maybe reasons why that I thought was pretty interesting. Cross immunity is one of the things that they threw out there. So if you have been exposed to some of the other endemic coronaviruses that were already here before coronavirus, you might have the propensity not to be infected by this one. So that one makes a lot of sense. Cross immunity, multiple genetic variations. So this is when somebody's immune system more or less is susceptible to a virus or not susceptible to a virus. So that was a little bit of a learning. Maybe it's a little genetic, I guess, is what they're putting on the table here. So you could either have cross immunity, maybe have genetics. I love this one. Mucosal immunity. What? May play for under-recognized role in a mounting of defense. So what they're basically saying here is that some people produce a little bit more mucus than others. And it's like a barrier.
So remember that the next time you have that you always think your nose is running and you just feel like you're extra snotty all the time, you could be saving your own life there.
You could have mucosal immunity. That's the phrase that you want right there. And who knew? And you could be a never COVID person too. And then finally, where the virus settles is apparently important too.
Yeah.
How large the particle amount was, the amount, length of exposure, all that makes sense, right? We've kind of learned that as we've kind of gone through this. If you brush by somebody that had it, probably not going to get it. But if you get heavy doses and those types of things, but it is still curious that they directly, infected by placing droplets in their nose, and only 16 out of 34 people got it. So there you go. There's the whole never COVID thing. I was like, oh boy, is this a political article? Like never Trumpers, never whatever, never COVID people. But it was a scientific study. Pretty interesting, huh?
Yeah. I thought it was interesting too. And what I thought was funny is they had this is an Axios article, and the bottom line was like, hey, the bottom line here is though vaccines, boosters, masks, all that stuff, still very important. Still the guaranteed way, or at least the best way to prevent infection. But just to acknowledge here that it's possible, again, in this relatively unscientific study of a very, very small group, that maybe more people are immune than we might have realized.
And leave it to the people from the UK to do this. Whenever I think of anything coming out of the UK, it's like a bunch of people sitting in a pub, and they're saying, oh, this is the study we're going to run.
It's like the pub from Ted Lasso, and they're all just sitting there, watching the game, getting infected with SARS to see what happens.
Oh, bloody hell. Pass that down to me.
I'll take a whiff for that.
Yeah. That's how things happen in the UK.
Okay.
I could be completely wrong. I probably just offended the whole,
Yeah, you did. Great. We lost all 5 people that listen to us from the UK. Thanks. Way to go, Dean.
Anyway,
we were relying on them.
So what's your tech bite? What's your first one?
All right, my first one here. Robotic umpires are coming to baseball in 2022.
I'm not a fan of this. I don't know, man. I don't know where I land on this. Go ahead. Lay out the argument.
Okay, so this has already actually been a thing. They've been doing this in the Atlantic League for a season and a half now. The Atlantic League is an independent league.
Okay.
So it's not affiliated with MLB, but they started it off there. Now, it's called actually the Automated Ball Strike System, or ABS.
Yep.
It's not to replace umpires entirely. It's not like you're not going to have umps. There's still going to be an ump behind the plate. It's all about balls and strikes only. It's calling balls and strikes only.
Yep.
Well, this year it's going to get upgraded to AAA, which is the highest level of minor league baseball for MLB. It's the level just below you get to the major leagues.
Yes.
So a lot of players that are coming up to the major leagues this season will have been playing through this first on their way up. So they're going to give it the tryout here. Umpires says they're still needed for rulings on checked swings, interference, plays at the plate, obviously, but balls and strikes will be noted by this robot umpire, which is actually just more of a system, basically like a camera system that can identify the strike zone, all this stuff. So so the big debate, obviously,
TrackMan system.
Yeah, that's the company that's doing it. They were a golf startup, actually, where some of the technology comes from. And this was part of an MLB umpire union deal, apparently from a couple of years ago, to do this, which I'm kind of surprised they would have been necessarily behind it. But at the same time, I don't know, maybe umpires are feeling like I'm tired of getting yelled at whenever I call something the wrong way. Who knows?
No, but they allowed it to come in if they got a pay increase.
Well,
but go ahead.
That's true. That's a good point.
Which is typically the way those negotiations
do less and
go.
I want more money.
That's it. That's right.
I need to get in on that. But there was a great discussion about this too, and there was an interview with former big leaguer Frank Viola.
Yes.
Who mentioned himself, Tom Glavine, Greg Maddux, some of the greats, pitching greats that their careers were very much based on the kind of finesse pitching that they would do to get balls and strikes when they weren't necessarily always balls or strikes.
Yes,
and absolutely. They pointed out that,
in fact, he went so far as to say we would have been walking everyone instead of getting called strikes that forced hitters into swinging the bat. But go ahead.
Because it's very interesting, because we're in an interesting time in the world of baseball where everything's all about either all or nothing power or hyper finesse pitching with a lot of nuance and a lot of, eating around the edges type stuff, in that strike zone. And if that strike zone is suddenly highly defined, you're right. There's a very good chance that means pitchers that, are known to be like superstar, catch the corner of the plate type pitchers.
Artists. I'm going to call them artists.
Which I hate to say it, but even though that shouldn't necessarily happen, umpires sometimes will get a, kind of an impression of look, I know this guy is one of the best pitchers in the game.
100%, yeah.
If he's close enough, I'm going to assume he knew what he was doing and actually got it over the plate and got the strike, And that's where a lot of that benefit of the doubt kind of came in. So I'm sure there are batters that might think I don't want that benefit of the doubt given to this pitcher just because it's, whatever, it's Shohei Ohtani, or Max Scherzer or Clayton Kershaw or something, the guys that are these, amazing pitchers. I just want to, I want to know if that was a ball or that was a strike. And I'm with you. I'm a baseball purist, although I'm also the DH is going to get introduced league-wide this year. I don't really have an issue with that.
But I do, but whatever.
But this is one that I do kind of worry about a little bit. And I don't know. Because I've been on both ends of this. I've been on the ends of it where, like, your team got that defining strikeout, even though it probably was a little off the plate.
Yeah.
But I've also been that your team lost the game, the big game, and lost out or whatever.
Yeah.
Because the pitch that wasn't over the plate. I don't know. It's hard.
I gotcha. Yeah, but I don't know. In this mechanized world that is getting more and more robotic every day, I kind of like the artistry of baseball. I like the human aspect of it. I like starting off a game. If I was a pitcher, I was never a pitcher, but I get totally how pitchers think. The first inning is very important to them. Right. What is the ump going to be calling here? Right. How much leeway? Where is he going to be squeezing my strike zone, or is he going to loosen it up? And
Can
then
I do something to expand it?
There you go. And if I do well the first couple innings, then now he's going to start giving me a little leeway as we get in there. And it's all, we're talking like half inches, quarter inches. We're not talking big stuff. Yeah. I mean, to me, there's something very, just again, artistic about it. It reminds me back in the day when we went from like analog records and then tape, right, to like a digital music environment. Right. Digital music like replicates music in a very ones and zeros, man. It's ones and zeros. There's no warmth. That was the whole idea. Pushback was, well, digital's fine. It sounds like it, but it's not warm. It doesn't have that. Kind of reminds me of that a little bit here in the sense that, what are we doing? But, Frank Viola went on to say the TrackMan is helping one type of pitcher. It's the power pitcher who throws 95 plus. That doesn't really matter, right? They're just blowing the ball right past somebody anyway. So they don't have to paint the corners and do that kind of a thing. So
I guess I wonder too if this might affect the batters as well, where they might start wondering to themselves like, hey, look, I mean, one, I guess, if they feel fairly confident it's off the plate, they won't swing. But then I also wonder if there might be a higher volume of people just taking hacks at stuff because they're like, I can't tell for sure here, and I can't rely on the umpire potentially giving me the benefit of the doubt. Because I guess, again, that could work the other way. If you're a superstar hitter who's known for patience at the plate and being smart, okay, let's say a Joey Votto.
Yep, right.
That's for us here locally, a big, a batter known to be extremely patient, very smart, knows balls and strikes. And is rarely wrong about what is and what isn't a ball and strike. I would guess umpires the same way they might treat pitchers, superstar pitchers, as knowing their stuff to be like, hey, this batter probably knows their stuff too. So I'm not going to call that one way or the other necessarily. If he's not swinging, he must have seen something that maybe even I didn't necessarily.
Right. Yeah.
And then again, this would take that completely out of the picture.
Totally.
I don't know. We'll see.
Don't know. Yeah. But here's what obviously it doesn't matter what we think.
That's true.
What's going on though? They're going to do it. But I did not know this. As of March, a couple years ago, 2019, that TrackMan system had already been installed in 54 Division I schools. So to me, it's like, because I was wondering to myself, well, what are the kids coming up through the ranks going to think of this stuff? But they're already kind of used to it. If it's in 54 Division I schools,
which makes sense,
that are using it right now,
get them used to it.
Yeah, they're probably like, that's just the way of the world. You've got this mechanized strike zone.
Yeah. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Baseball's in a very weird spot right now. And obviously we got, as we're recording this in, mid-February-ish, we got a lockout going on. When the season's going to start is kind of potentially up in the air. Hopefully by the time this comes out, we at least have a better idea of what's happening there. Not a great time to be doing that. They're having trouble holding on to fans as it is.
Yep.
And I know one of baseball's big goals is like, I think they feel like, hey, we have to make it as exciting as possible. And that means more people taking swings, more balls in play. The perception for a common fan or someone who's a casual fan is that, pitching is boring. That a well-pitched game isn't necessarily the most exciting thing. And people want the offense; they want home runs,
which is true. I mean, I guess,
and I guess I get that, but obviously, again, I'm a little more old school. I'm like, show me a no-hitter, and I find that just as, if not more exciting than a walk-off home run. But I don't know.
I'm a cynic. It's just going to lead to more walks. So you get more walked-in runs, more.
That's entirely possible. Yeah, or just it's going to be more walks, more strikeouts from everybody just taking hacks at everything, especially again that 95-mile-per-hour hurler who just flings it down the plate and hopes for the best.
Yeah.
And then I guess probably potentially more home runs, People just slugging the ball out.
I don't know. So we'll see what comes of that, huh?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, the next one for me is one you and I always love to chew on a little bit. So this is from Wallet Hub, safest cities in America. And, whenever somebody makes a claim like that, it's always got my radar. Like, okay.
What is the parameters?
What are the parameters that they're using to do this? So I'll give you the headline, or at least I'll drop the cities here. So the safest cities in the U.S. right now, ranked number 1. I'll give you the top 3. Or do you want to guess them real quick?
No, I already looked at it.
All right. So. Columbia, Maryland, South Burlington, Vermont, and Nashua, New Hampshire. And then the worst cities, and I don't know what the ranking, how many that went down. It went down to 100. Yeah, 180 to 182. So the bottom 3, San Bernardino, California, Fort Lauderdale, and then St. Louis comes in as the least safest city. So, I sat back and I thought to myself, what criteria, before I even looked at it, what criteria would I use? Crime rate? Right? Safe. You're thinking safe city. Okay. Yeah. Violent crime rate. That's going to play into it. How many police are there to citizen ratio? I thought of. That'd be pretty good. Maybe weather, what's the propensity of earthquakes or stuff like that, those types of things. So
auto accidents, traffic, that was one.
They used some of that stuff, yes. So they used like hate crime rate is what they had, traffic fatalities, as you just mentioned. But then they get into stuff like the unemployment rate. Unemployment rate? What exactly are you saying here? That poor people make it less safe? Is that
right? There was a weird correlation because I got into that and like uninsured.
Yes, uninsured rate.
Percentage of household savings.
Those are the 3 that I called out. Yeah. I'm like, what are we doing? What?
Like that feels like you're just saying like, all right, well, if you don't have a lot of people working, they must be out doing unsafe criminal things maybe. But again, this doesn't necessarily specify that unsafe means crime, because they do use traffic fatalities as one, natural disaster. So like that's not human nature type stuff necessarily, just
right. But that's safeness. I would not equate unemployment to safe or not safe.
No.
Or uninsured, I guess, is just, I don't know. To me that's really a stretch there. Like, can they afford to be insured? That's the first question. Or are they just thwarting the system and saying, well, I'm just going to run uninsured?
Right, yeah, it's not like if you don't have insurance, you suddenly just stop caring about being safe. In fact, I think it would be the opposite, but...
And then what's the emergency savings? Percent of households with emergency savings. Like, are you saying the people that save money for emergency savings act safer? Is that the extrapolation here? And if you don't, a lot of people don't have the means, first off, but if you don't have emergency savings, you just run rogue and create these unsafe cities. I don't know. But when you look at the top 3, here's my final point on this thing. Columbia, Maryland, okay. Well, actually, that has a population of 100,000. It's just outside of Baltimore. It is, on this particular list, was the safest city. But the next 2, South Burlington, Vermont, 19,000 people. Okay, my kid's school is bigger than South Burlington, Vermont. Nashua, New Hampshire? Do you even know where Nashua is? It's like... Yeah, it's in the boonies somewhere. There's 80,000 people live there. So I don't know. Our beloved city that we live close by, Cincinnati, came in at 121, which is the middle of the pack.
Right.
And then obviously those other cities had, a lot more population, which I thought that would be a contributing factor, right? Like the more people you have.
Right.
Anyway.
The one I found most hilarious here when I was looking through these is they kind of like after the list break down like top 5 and bottom 5 of their parameters, basically. My favorite thing here, so he said that St. Louis was at the very bottom. Now, I've been to St. Louis a couple times, and I've always thought, again, my definition of what is and isn't safe, whatever that is, and I'm a privileged white guy, so who knows what what I do and don't think is safe. But like, St. Louis always is a city that I've always felt comfortable just walking around in.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's not a city I ever felt like, man, I'm a little concerned about going down this road.
It's shady.
Like, no, like it's, it's a fairly comfortable, like, city for just hanging out in kind of thing. At least that's been my impression. Maybe I was just in a certain area, like around the ballpark and stuff like that or whatever.
Apparently you were wrong.
I guess I was. But here's what's hilarious though. So one of their parameters is most law enforcement employees per capita. St. Louis is tied for first on that with DC, New York, and Chicago.
Right.
Okay. Now,
so it has the most police per capita.
But now, their most assaults per capita, they are tied for dead last, meaning they have the most. So you have the most police, but somehow you have the most assaults also in the same city? Like, what
What's going on there?
What are those guys doing? You know, like I don't get it. It's I don't know, these things, like, you know, I don't know how scientific these things are, you know, and we've done a few things like this, like
it's
best and worst cities.
It's clickbait. It got me.
It totally is.
I was in, but then I started asking questions. It started falling apart.
Yeah. Like, even like it mentions here, like, you know, we had a panel of experts weigh in on, you know, how to make things feel safe. And they mentioned stuff like the vaccine rollout. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. You didn't say, you know, that we're talking about safety in regards to getting sick.
Right. Like, it's like physical safety.
Like, okay, so then I could see why the Vermont one, maybe, because isn't Vermont like one of the most highly vaccinated, you know, states?
Like 93% of the people.
All right, I guess it's just, I think everybody's going to have a different definition of what safe means. And when you just use all the definitions and hodge them together, like, I don't know how that really works. Yeah. So.
Can't we just go off a crime rate? I mean, isn't that basically? So
I'll put the link to, as always with these articles, I'm putting all the links in our show notes. So you can check this out for yourself. By the way, if you do watch on YouTube, since I can't hyperlink everything there, I'll just put a link at the end to our landing page for the podcast on Podbean. You'll have all the hyperlinks there to check out.
There you go.
So if you want to follow along as we're talking about this stuff. All right, let's see. What did I have next here? Hey, let's talk about the Super Bowl commercials.
I love it. I love it.
Super Bowl was just the beginning of the week, last weekend for us as we're recording this. Sad loss for us and our Bengals, unfortunately, but a good game and enjoyable.
Yeah, we were there at least.
So yeah, exactly. So, of course, Super Bowl commercials are always a big part of every game.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like, I don't know if it's me, but I don't feel like Super Bowl commercials are nearly as fun and cool and exciting as they used to be.
Yeah?
Like, I feel like
when do you think was the golden age of the commercial then?
It might have been like late 90s, early 2000s or so. I don't know. Maybe it's just an age thing. Who knows?
Yeah.
And maybe it's because of like the stuff that they're advertising. Maybe if it's aiming for younger audiences, clearly don't work for me anymore. Or, and this batch this year was just fine, like I guess they were fine. Nothing that blew me away.
It was fine.
So I found an article from NPR here with some of the best and worst Super Bowl commercials. Thought we'd talk about a few of these. And I guess one thing, because it was interesting, because this was definitely the Super Bowl that people kind of referred to as like a lot of nostalgia.
Yes.
And a lot of that being because of the halftime show.
Yeah, the halftime. Absolutely.
We were just talking about earlier, a lot of, hip hop artists from, back at the turn of the century that, still aren't popular today, but, definitely had their heyday then.
Right.
And apparently there's a big debate over millennials and Gen X, I guess, us,
Gen X,
technically,
right.
debating over who they belong to. And I'm like, I don't know, like they kind of just crossed over both, I guess. Does it really matter, So it seemed like a lot of the commercials almost felt like nostalgic too.
Yes.
And in particular, obviously there was a lot of like stuff with like electric vehicles, for instance, which we kind of would have expected.
Yeah, right.
A lot of technology. There's always a lot of tech ads.
Yeah.
But then, of course, one big set of ads that was a big deal this year was all like the crypto ads. Yeah. Stuff for cryptocurrency, which we have railed about cryptocurrency and NFTs and all this stuff on the show before.
Yes.
Someone pointed out on Twitter, and I was actually thinking this kind of myself as I was watching the game, and like the bouncing QR code that we all were dumb enough to scan.
Yes.
And all the crypto stuff that showed up. Like I do remember distinctly getting this impression, and somebody on Twitter made it kind of helped me, congeal what I was thinking, which is this was very much reminiscent of the .com boom. Again, getting nostalgic. Of the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yep.
When I remember some of those Super Bowls where it was just filled with,
Pets.com,
GoDaddy commercials, all these commercials that, were all about, go here, sign up for this, make millions of dollars when this blows up. And a short time later, we saw how that all turned out.
There's my bro science. If you start seeing commercials about something in the Super Bowl that you're interested in, like cryptocurrency, there's your sign that the bubble's bursting.
Yep. It's on its way out. A bunch of people are about to get in, and it's time for you to get out, or you shouldn't have been there to begin with.
Yes, get out quickly.
So what do you think of the commercials? Were any that really stood out to you? Any that you thought were really good? Some that you thought were like, meh?
Yeah, I thought there were quite a few of them were pretty good, actually. Although I'm going to start with the Pringles one. That one was a little odd to me. This is the one where the guy got his hand stuck in a Pringles.
Right.
They literally follow him through his whole life, all the way to death, and he's in the casket with the Pringles can. And then the poor boy gets one, at the wake. And it's like, what did I just watch? What was that all about? I don't know.
Hasn't there been an ad with stuck in the Pringles can long ago?
Oh, I don't know. Okay.
I feel like that's not
I missed
new.
something there.
Like maybe it's not it wasn't the same setup, but I feel like there's that's been a long, old running gag with the whole Pringles hand stuck in the can thing.
Gotcha.
Again, a lot of these ads just felt like they were like, I mean, shit, they brought back the E-Trade baby, right?
Yes.
Which it took me like half of that commercial to be like, I don't get what this commercial commercial seems to be implying I'm supposed to know what this is.
E-Trade
and
baby.
then at the end of it, they said it was E-Trade. I was like, oh, I do kind of remember there being E-Trade baby commercials that were a big deal back in the day. But was anybody asking for that? Did anybody care?
No, nobody asked for that. No. My favorite commercial, though, and I don't. Do you have a favorite one already?
I do, but I'll let you do yours first because yours might be the same as mine.
Okay, Planters was my favorite.
No, but that was probably my second or third favorite.
Because that was, I mean, just the world we're in right now, where we're at with society. I thought they nailed it. This is the one where it was a mixed nut, can, and you had two groups of people. You either grab the nuts and ate them all at one time, or you pick through them and individually
of each different type. Well, which are you?
I think I just grab a handful.
I'm a handful.
I'm probably a handful person.
I'm a handful. You give me mixed nuts and just they're all nuts. I'll throw them all at once.
But it was just so well written, so well done. At the end of the commercial, it's this whole bifurcation of the society. You're either a handful person or you're individual one. And then the commentary at the end is like, geez, I thought we could all get along on something like this. And it was just where we're at in a society.
Sometimes the simplest things can divide us all.
Well, it makes you take a step back and say, yeah, we're pretty stupid. Because I can totally see people getting just burned up on Twitter about this type of a topic. It's like, no. It's like, we're not that.
One of those people like, there's two types of people in the world. The people that eat the mixed nuts together and the people that separate them. Which are you?
I thought it was brilliant.
I did very much enjoy the Arnold Schwarzenegger Salma Hayek BMW commercial.
Yes.
For a trotting out some aged celebrities, although Salma Hayek still looks amazing, let's be honest. Like I found that commercial to be, as it kept going along, funnier and funnier and funnier. Like I'm like, okay, this actually is very much entertaining. I like what we're doing here.
Yeah. Arnold's this is the one where he was Zeus, right?
Yeah, Arnold's one of those people that I feel like when you get him in small doses these days, just doing a little random
That's
stuff,
all you need.
Especially if there's a comedic edge to it, you kind of dig it more. Like I don't need him starring in blockbuster films anymore. It just doesn't work, I can't see him as an action hero anymore. Like it's very clear when you trade in somebody who's 40 years younger than him to do the action sequences, But I can appreciate fun stuff like this. So I'm trying to think if there was any. Oh well, the other big thing that stood out to me, and this is one of those things. Like I feel like this is another thing why Super Bowl's kind of like the commercial stuff kind of disappoints me these days. As I feel like there used to be a lot more like big blockbuster movie trailers.
Oh, right. There was only one or two.
We had Jurassic World and we had Doctor Strange, which the Doctor Strange trailer was like, for anybody who watches or listens to the podcast enough, that I'm a big Star Wars guy. I'm also a big, huge Marvel nerd. And I'm out of my mind excited about this movie coming out. So I was happy to see that. But yeah, like I used to feel like back in the day there would always be, at least 4 or 5 huge blockbuster ads for big movies that are coming out. And you just don't see it. And I guess part of the problem with that is most of these ads get released online early. And literally Apple has a trailer app, to go watch trailers. They're usually on YouTube at a time. So it's you don't see many. It seems like many studios don't like to actually bring these ads out and show them just at the Super Bowl to start. They're usually already out and about.
Gotcha.
Before then, but I don't know. So.
Yeah. No, I thought that's true, and I guess you don't see it. I was wondering if it just because people don't go to theaters anymore,
well,
so
sure
there isn't the whole summertime crush that you would have normally.
You could do that though with I would have loved to have seen a trailer for the new Obi-Wan Kenobi series, for instance. You could do that with streaming content.
Not at $6 million a second or whatever the hell they were selling it for.
Yeah. And I guess the point there also is there's not, because I guess there's not as much competition anymore to get people in theaters, because either they're they're not necessarily struggling to do it. I mean, Spider-Man No Way Home just literally broke records and was now third highest grossing movie of all time.
Yeah.
When we were in a pretty big surge, there at that point. So I don't think the appetite for going to movies is necessarily entirely gone. But yes, to be fair, there is, so many more options for people to stream at home. And why spend the money to get people to stream something that's just going to pop up on their service and tell them to watch it at some point anyway?
Yeah. Now, I thought the Kevin Hart one was funny. Kevin Hart is just funny, period. So anytime he does it, he was a VIP at Sam's Club. That was a pretty funny one as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I thought in general they were pretty good this year. But
they were better. I think it was a little bit of a better crop than I've seen the last few years. But I was glad that I had a game to actually be very invested in this year too, so that always helps.
And it was a good game.
It was.
Yeah. So,
all right, Dean, what do you got next?
Well, the next thing that I got on my list is a pretty serious problem, actually. It's population growth, right? It's kind of a big problem. Why? Because, and this is in the U.S., you kind of need people to pay the bills. So what I mean by that is you need younger people out there paying the bills for the older people when they start getting to an age where they need, public assistance.
Right.
So when you look at places like Japan right now is absolutely struggling with this because they've gone through years and years of population decline, and now they're running huge debts in Japan, and they're actually the most over-leveraged country in the world right now. So when you step back and you think about it, oh boy. So the United States grew by only 0.1% last year. So 392,000 people were added in population between July of 2020 and July of 2021. And that is the least amount of growth, I'm using air quotes here, since 1937.
Which would have been Great Depression era, wouldn't it?
That's Great Depression era. Yeah. That's right. Well, so I guess, okay, we're coming out of a pandemic, and I get it. But when you look at the graph, the population growth has been declining really since I think since the 1980s or something like that. But it's dramatic what happened in the last year. And again, I mean, it's just the commentary that, that a population, a society needs population growth, especially on the financial side. When you look at states like Florida, there were actually more people died in Florida than were birthed in Florida. So you have some and we all know that half of Florida's got to be retired people at this point in time. Yeah. So
what I know, the instinct here seemed to be well, let's just attribute this to the pandemic, but this was already a trend for a long time before the pandemic too. I mean,
I think so.
I think fewer people are having children, more people are waiting longer to have children. The average age of death is, has been creeping a little bit lower over time. So
Yep. All those things are a factor.
I feel like we're on a little bit of a negative trend that may continue for a little bit longer here.
Oh, absolutely.
If not for a much longer time.
But again, at the end of the road, it's like, okay, well then what are we going to do about some of these financial obligations that you're going to have to some of these parts of the population where if you only have, I forget what it was back, 30, 40 years ago. It was for every retired person, you had 10 workers paying into Social Security. It was a non-factor, right? Whatever the ratio was. But if you start getting skinny that up or upside down that, well, now you got, for every one retired person, if there's just one person working to help pay into that. Yeah,
so
that's going to be an issue.
You and I are going to be doing the TEConnect podcast when we're 85, right?
We're screwed. Yeah,
100%.
But
I
knew that when I was 20. When I get to this age, it'd be like,
I know. I really do want to retire, though. I just want to be able to just, do whatever I want for at least, 5-6 years.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. So anyway, population was on my mind there. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So here's what I got next year. This is a very interesting article I came across called "How to Be a Disruptor," and it was a kind of a editorial commentary, from. This was published in Marker. Definitely read the article. I highly recommend it. It was written by Mark Randolph, who was one of the co-founders of Netflix.
Yes.
And so basically this was him trying to say hey, if you want to be a disruptor, the subtitle is just focus on the market that nobody's paying attention to. And it kind of, builds this around the story of how Netflix came to be and how Netflix kind of took over and knocked Blockbuster out of the way, essentially.
Yes.
And it's a fascinating story. A lot of this stuff I already kind of knew. I've always thought the story of Netflix is one of the more fascinating entrepreneurial stories out there.
Yes.
Of how a company, again, and to his point, found itself its niche and ran with it and just completely blew its competition out of the water.
Well, not only an entrepreneurial story, but also an epic fail of a large company story.
And he kind of gets into that here, and he talks about the idea about, he says, in a way, the story of Netflix taking down Blockbuster is an inspiring one, just as a handful of people with no experience in the video industry using nothing more than imagination and persistence, taking down the biggest video rental company in the world. And he said, but what if you are the 800-pound gorilla? Then it's a different story, isn't it? Because the moral is a little different and a little unsettling.
Yes,
so he points out, like, Blockbuster, and he notes that, like, when Netflix started, and this is something I hadn't heard before, they had a paltry selection of 900 videos in a bank's, their operations was in an old bank building, and he said they used the old walk-in safe of the bank to store their videos. And of course, Blockbuster was dominating. At the time, they were $650,000 in annual revenue at each individual store.
Yeah.
And said in '99, Blockbuster boasted of having a store within a 10-minute drive of virtually every neighborhood in the United States.
And that is so true. It was like Starbucks today.
Yep.
You couldn't go.
You probably knew 2 or 3 in your area. You could, if you wanted to rent something and it wasn't at one, you probably knew another you could get to in 10 minutes. To look there also.
Absolutely.
But what he points out here is that a big part of what they were doing wrong, or at least where the level they had reached, is they had an idea called managed dissatisfaction.
Okay.
Which is an understanding that your customers don't necessarily, like, they're going to be upset and dissatisfied about some things, but because you're the only game in town, they have to deal with it. So for example,
you just have to manage that properly.
So for example, they highly focused on new releases. Like, you walked in, the new release wall was the biggest deal there.
Yes.
So they didn't keep nearly as much, back stock or older videos on hand. When the new release stuff, if you didn't get it in time, it was gone for weeks potentially because people were renting it out or putting themselves on lists for it. And they were fine with that. And then late fees. They're always, they were, as he puts it, Blockbuster was addicted to their late fees because they made more than $700 million per year on them and more than 15% of their total revenue.
Whoa. Yeah, see,
that's insane.
That's taking advantage.
Yeah, that's a collapse waiting to happen. Like, when a huge chunk of your business model is something that pisses off every one of your customers, probably not sustainable. But then he pointed out what really was set them apart, though, and why they won this game is because they decided to focus on DVDs at a time when DVDs still weren't that popular yet.
Okay.
The majority of Blockbusters didn't even stock DVDs, or if they did, it was an extremely small supply. They were focused on VHS still, because there wasn't enough people with DVDs. Plus, the other thing he pointed out was that Netflix, when they founded, because they decided to be an internet company that serviced the nation, could service all DVD owners around the country, even though it was, I think they said DVD ownership at the time was 500,000 households, less than 500,000 households.
Yeah, right.
The VHS universe was 100 times larger. When a local Blockbuster, you might have one person in your region that has a DVD player at the time. Why are you catering to them?
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
So when they decided to put this together, like, you know what, we're going to focus strictly on DVDs. We're not going to do VHS at all.
I guess I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was an early adopter. It was mail,
right? They mailed it to you?
Yeah, it was mail order originally.
Okay.
I was an early adopter. Like, I had a DVD player like 98, 99, I think.
Okay.
Like, my boss at my bookstore that I worked at or whatever recommended I get one. He loaned me some movies that he'd bought. He got me onto Netflix. He's like, hey, there's this cool service, Netflix. You should check it out. And, and I was totally addicted to that. But, he's got a point here that why this worked so well is because at the time, a very small group of people were in on this. But that group, and we all knew it was going to grow. No one was under any delusion that
it wasn't
DVD wasn't going to overtake VHS someday.
Yeah.
It was just that Blockbuster willfully chose to say, we're not going to mess with that until we have to mess with that when more people have these.
And by then it was too late.
Right. And by then Netflix owned all the people that already had them and were picking up more as they came along. More and more people were buying DVD players.
They let them in.
They were all picking them up and bringing them in too. Yeah. So by the time Blockbuster shifted and said, okay, well, now we're going to predominantly stock DVDs, it was already too late for them.
Late. Yep. Cat was already out of the bag. Yeah. There was another solution out there. And then it didn't get into streaming at all.
No,
which was the other foul or huge mistake that Blockbuster made. What an epic fail. Oh, seriously.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure economics courses these days.
Oh, yeah.
And business management and entrepreneurship courses. I'm sure that's a highlight story these days.
I can't believe we haven't had a movie out like sitting in a boardroom of a Blockbuster back in the day. I'm imagining it's smoky and stuff like that. What do we need DVDs for?
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
We're not doing that. Charge them more late fees.
Yeah, I want the social network for Netflix.
Yes.
Except the story doesn't end in, weird, dark messing with the entire fate of the world kind of, it's just movies and TV and streaming. So
what was the disruptor angle? Did he have any more takeaways about that?
Essentially, his idea behind this is look for places where your competition's not willing to go.
Okay.
Like if you're seeing something that your competition, the bigger, stronger competition is saying like, no, we're not going to do this. You can mess around with this if you want. We're not going to do this yet. This isn't who we are. Stick with it because there's a good chance at some point people are going to like what you're doing potentially. You know there's value in it. You know it's something people want, even if it's not necessarily the biggest market and the biggest gains at the moment, but you know it's heading somewhere. Stick with it because by the time your competition wises up and gets around to it, they're going to be too late into the game.
Yes, change always happens, right?
Exactly.
Nothing stays. The status quo does not stay. Yeah.
Exactly.
Interesting stuff. Yeah. All right. Fair enough. That was a good one. All right, so my last one that I got here are top tech trends. So I picked up on this article that was put out by McKinsey and Company, and they just, they ranked some of the top tech trends that are happening. And what I found fascinating, first off, it suits my style because most of it was graphic, and I like that. I like little graphs and charts and stuff like that. But they kind of quantified a lot of these by investment, news mentions, and then patents granted. So, and I thought that was pretty good way of saying, what kind of a tech trend is catching on? Well, let's look at how much people are investing in it, how much is getting mentioned in the news, and then are people creating patents around it? I thought that was a pretty brilliant way of looking at it. So anyway, we'll just kind of read through a couple of these top tech trends that are happening out there. And I'll read some of these kind of verbatim here. So one of the tech trends that they have is the rise of software 2.0. I wasn't really aware of this, but in which programmers are replaced by neural networks that use machine learning to develop software. It promises to unlock higher order edge use cases like autonomous vehicles, where the only way to progress is through AI models. At the end of the spectrum, software 2.0 will provide organizations with a far easier, more iterative, more intuitive way to customize existing code and automate mundane programming tasks. And boy, through low code or no code approaches, boy, that makes a lot of sense. So software 2.0, I was thinking to myself, so if I'm a coder, I didn't really think the coders their jobs might be, not as secure as you would think it is. But if you're using neural networks and machine learning...
Someone's got to code the AI, though, don't they?
Well, no, it's what it's saying is it's kind of coding itself type of a thing. So this has gotten billions and billions of investments. It really is peaked a lot here recently. Lots of news mentions, not so much on the patent grants, but I found that one to be pretty interesting. Software 2.0, if you hear about it, that's what they're talking about there. Another one that I thought was pretty interesting here was a trend in deploying AI algorithms to train machines to recognize patterns and interpret acts on those patterns. We talk about it kind of all the time here about AI and how it's used with visualization and can help things with like quality control and stuff like that. But they talk about how helping computers make some sense of the real world data, including video and images and stuff like that. This is definitely a next trend that it's happening right now, type of a thing. And the amount of patents that are being granted. Back in 2015, there were around 105 in this area. Last year, there were 320,000. I'm sorry. Yes, 105,000. Now there's 323,000 being put out there. So that's kind of an indicator that a lot. I know we talk about it a lot, but here's some actual data getting behind the importance of AI and it's moving forward. So, that's one of those things. So another trend I thought was pretty interesting here. You're starting to see some of the other stuff is the rapid approach of quantum computing and neuromorphic computing. So I wasn't so sure about the neuromorphic computing, but with the latter involving the development of specialized microchips called application-specific integrated circuits. Man, all I got to say here is that computing, the hardware compute, is getting really, really weird, really technical, like way above my head type of stuff. And what it, I don't know, it starts to get into like science fiction, if you ask me, around. It's like, what? How are they building these things that, I don't understand. But if you look at it, some of the capabilities that they're developing with this, obviously with this type of quantum type of computing, and how it can be used in such things as AI and cybersecurity and all kinds of things. It's just...
They talk about cutting development time for chemicals and pharmaceuticals with simulations.
Yes, right? Simulations. Yep. But you need a lot of computing crunching power to do that, to make these simulations. But it's just going to fast track things so much just beyond where we're at today. Yeah. Really fascinating stuff. Let's see here. One of the last ones they had here was around another trend brings together cloud and edge computing. So we talk about that a lot here to help companies move computing power further towards the edge of those networks, enabling them to reach data-hungry devices with far less latency and a greater number of locations. So gets around whole distributed infrastructure idea. So that is definitely a tech trend that we see out there. We've talked about it. But this kind of backs that a little bit here, getting more news mentions, getting a lot of patents granted around this space. So distributed infrastructure, yet another tech trend. So anyway, I thought I'd throw a couple out there. Some of them are kind of, bolster what we've been talking about here, right? In the edge computing and the fact that, a lot of our world has got to move towards that, or it's going to, whether you like it or not. And then a new learning, like with the software 2.0. Pretty interesting stuff there. Coders getting out of a job. We got this little whatever thing over neural network over here that's going to do the coding for you.
I'm sure we'll find something else for them to do. So I noticed there was a lot of cybersecurity talk in this stuff, which is always a big topic. But yeah, you're right. Like a lot of stuff I look through, I'm like, all of these are topics that we tend to find ourselves hitting on a lot in the show that our guests are talking about of, what's new and what's next, what people are going to expect next. And we had that whole episode about edge computing and the idea of, getting more processing power as close as possible to the source of what you're trying to do.
Yes. Yeah,
I have a feeling, some of this stuff is probably more going to be our kids and grandkids that are going to be playing in this new world that a lot of this stuff creates. But I think we'll see some of this stuff in our lifetime.
Yeah, you're right.
Because it'll be pretty next level. We'll be amazed by.
Oh, 100%. Because in this nice little pretty graph that they have here, they also had a maturity type of XY axis. And most of these were not in the very mature.
No,
so meaning there's a lot of room to grow there.
They're highly applicable, but not necessarily super mature. Kind of like in the middle ground.
Yep.
Definitely room to move there.
Pretty cool stuff, though. So anyway, that was my last tech bite that I had that I was going to bring to the table.
There you go. Well, hey, that's it for me also. So our tech has been bit today. Hopefully you got some interesting stories to take back. And like I said, check out in the show notes if you're in your podcast feed, you should be able to have a hyperlink to all these articles. If you're listening on an audio podcast, if you're watching on YouTube, scroll to the end of the description. You'll see the link that's got the hyperlinks to all these articles. If you want to read along and check out some of this stuff, some of them go a little more in depth than we were able to get. But hey, as always, I want to thank our TEConnect sponsors. Let's see, we've got Datalogic, Elo, Epson, Honeywell, Intel, and Zebra. If we add any more than that, I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep track of them all the time. I'll have to write them down. So thank you so much for your support of the show. We very much appreciate it. As always, if you like the podcast, please, if you're watching on YouTube, hit like, subscribe to our channel, leave us a comment. If you are listening on your audio podcaster of choice, if you have the ability to leave a rating review, especially if you're on Apple Podcasts, those 5-star rating reviews are hugely important to the show. And we just want to hear from you also. We just want to know what, if you like the show, if you don't, what you want to hear more about. Tell us topics that you're interested in.
Absolutely.
We'd love to hear that stuff. And as always, if you want to connect with us, if you do want to reach out to us, tell us your thoughts or feedback, or just follow along with a fun social feed where I throw out random jokes from time to time. And I just had one a couple weeks back where I showed a bunch of trilogies, the final movies of trilogies.
I saw that, yes.
Yeah. So follow us on Twitter at TEConnectPod. You can also email us, TEConnect@BlueStarInc.com. Hey, before we get to our recurring segments, let's hear from one of our sponsors. TEConnect Podcast is brought to you by Elo. Looking to meet the needs of both hospitality and retail customers and their employees, as well as their busy on-the-go customers? Introducing the new Elo M60 Pay, a mobile POS computer designed to support everyday business. It's rugged, enterprise-grade, all-in-one device, 6-inch HD touch display, Android 10 OS, Qualcomm Snapdragon 660 octa-core processor.
What?
Sounds like something out of a James Bond movie.
Right?
And all of the requisite connectivity options.
Bomb.
Now, Dean, you and I are both fans of paying where, when, and how we want. We love
on demand, right?
Our phones, our watches, maybe a credit card if we feel like it.
100%.
Well, that really puts the M60 above other mobile computers for productivity, is that it offers integrated payment capabilities to speed customers along wherever they are.
Beautiful. Love
it's
it.
equipped for dip, tap, and swipe. That always sounds like a TikTok dance. Doesn't it?
Can you say that again? Dip, tap, and swipe?
Can you do the dip? Can you do the tap? Can you do the swipe?
No, I'm not on TikTok, but go ahead.
Maybe I'll shoot my very first TikTok video, and it'll just be us doing our version of whatever we think dip, tap, and swipe.
With the M60.
With the M60, yes. You'll be like, no,
don't do that.
We're good. We're good. That's fine. We're good. We don't need to go viral like that. So that means that it accepts EMV cards with chips, NFC contactless payments for cards or mobile devices, and the traditional mag stripes as well. I mean, mag stripes, whatever. It's so 2000s.
Yeah.
Who's using mag stripes?
You still got it, yeah.
I guess they're there for a reason.
Yeah.
Perfect for tableside service, line busting, curbside pickup, anywhere your customers need to accept payments. So to learn more about this amazing new device, you're going to be hearing more about this.
Oh, yeah.
In some of our other entertainment works as well.
Yes.
Check out the link in the show notes or contact the BlueStar ELO team. All right, Dean, let's wrap things up here. Now, we normally do a value to the VAR segment, which is, a takeaway for our VAR audience. I mean, again, the idea of this is some water cooler type stories and talk, but I will say, like, the How to Be a Disruptor article, I think it's something you could take a little heart from and think about, like, hey, where's your biggest competition out there? If you're going up against the big dogs and they're taking business away from you, find out what are they not willing to do. Talk to some of their customers and find out what are their pain points. I mean, that's kind of sales 101, but it may not be about stealing business away from them, but like where can you maybe focus your business to get in on a market that they're not doing yet, where that people are going to want this at some point. It just may not be everybody's there just yet.
What I like about that, it puts you in the mentality of being hungry, and right? Even if you've been in business for 20 years doing the same old thing, if you take on the mentality of being a little bit more disruptive and trying to find those areas, it just makes you a little bit more hungry about, hey, let's grow our business a little bit in this area or over here, where it could, because as opposed to a startup company who's very hungry. That's all they got. They got to be disruptive because they got no business or whatever. Exactly. But if you add that mentality into your day-to-day life, I think some good things can happen out of that.
Well, and the flip side, too, is if you are, as they refer to, the 800-pound gorilla, if you're the big dog, pay attention to where people are trying to disrupt you. If some little company's coming in and saying, we're going to do this because you're not, don't just dismiss them and push them aside and be like, whatever, we don't have to do that. We'll get around to that when we feel like it.
Right.
Think about, is that something I should be doing too? Really give it some thought and pay some attention to it.
Yep.
Because you don't want to be the next Blockbuster. Let's put it that way.
And I thought the tech trends, it just validation on some of the things that are happening in the marketplace. And next generation computing, don't really understand that, but it's going to be helpful for all of us. Distributed infrastructure, getting to the edge, those things, again, further backs that. And then understand that there's a software 2.0 out there happening that could have a little bit of an impact on our world, because a lot of what we do is going to start getting into that AI, a lot of machine learning that's happening, especially over on the AIDC side and what's happening in that space. So, you need to be cognizant of some of those top tech trends that are happening there.
Exactly. All right, well, hey, let's wrap up with What's Tech Connecting with You, our segment where we get to talk about something in the world of science, tech innovation that has caught our eye, has our attention this week. Dean, I'll let you start. What's Tech Connecting with You?
Well, I actually got two of them for you here today. The first one is Pollination robots take over as bee population declines.
Okay.
All right. So we got some researchers. No, it's not. It's not a bad thing. Actually, the concept and the whole thing around it's pretty cool. Some folks over in West Virginia University, researchers there, we've been trying to tackle the whole thing that we've all been trying to tackle. How do you grow enough food out there, but curb the use of pesticides and chemicals, that have a negative impact, and of course, it's killing the bees and stuff like that. So they developed something. Now, I'm not a huge fan of this, but they developed what they call the stick bug. The stick bug.
Stick bug, okay.
And you see a picture of it, it's even worse. It's a 6-arm robot designed to pollinate crops on an indoor greenhouse. So you're in a greenhouse, right? And you've got tomatoes growing and stuff like that. It's this very rudimentary robot looking thing with 6 arms on it, like doing pollination. So it's hitting the flower.
So it's not like a little bee buzzing around or anything.
It's not a little, no.
That's not as fun.
I was kind of, right, the clickbait that got me in was like, oh man, this is going to be kind of cool.
It's going to be like robo-bees,
yeah.
and you're waiting for some supervillain to take them over and send them out after everybody.
No, that didn't happen.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so here's my second one.
All right.
You and I, my friend, we need to move to Belgium.
Okay.
Belgium just allowed the 4-day work week.
Okay, let's go.
We've been talking about it, right? About how this
My wife will be on board too. I know. Let's go.
This pandemic has changed things. Well, Belgium just took it to the next level, and they just whatever they did. You made it so that people only have to work 4-day work weeks. Now, you can work a maximum of 9.5 hours per day if you want.
Not too bad.
Right? I know even a lot of people that there are a lot of industries like nursing and stuff like that where you work for 10-hour days or 12-hour days and you get the long weekend type of a thing. But no, Belgium has made it officially a law that you can request a 4-day work week from your employer without losing any salary. So you still get paid what you're paid today, but you only have to work 4 days a week. I think I'm moving to Belgium.
Yeah, I can get behind that. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Let's go.
Either that or just make it happen here.
Yeah, right. Exactly. All right. So what's TEConnecting with you?
Okay, so this is actually a little outdated, but I kept a link to this on my phone and meant to talk about it at some point. Some of the interesting tech that came out of CES 2022.
Oh, yes.
Which was back in early January, I believe.
People actually showed up to it, yes.
Yeah, exactly. It was actually like, an in-person event this year. A lot of people showed up. What I find fun about these, and this particular article from Mashable I was looking through, is just some of the crazy outlandish tech that shows up at these shows that some of it you look at and you go, that's really cool. That is totally going to be like the future of technology, and we're all going to be using that someday. And some of you look at it and go, there's no way in hell that's actually going to happen. That is not a thing.
How did they get funding?
It's just some cool concept.
Yeah,
it's some cool concept you're throwing out there to prove you can do something and move on to something else, but it's not going to become a thing.
Throw a couple at us, yeah.
So you like some of the stuff that like is more reasonable is like, they had like pandemic life tech, which is like, cool, like, cool. This is a thing called a Zephyr Mask, which is almost an electronic mask with built-in airway filters and fans.
Gotcha. Yeah. The most high-tech mask.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like what you would see somebody wearing like a hazmat situation.
Like I said at the beginning of the pandemic, I wonder when we all start walking around like Kylo Ren and we just have this, whatever, this whole mechanism.
I want the main one, like, hello. I see you showed up to talk about an Opera campaign. Anyway.
So the Zephyr was
Tune into TEConnect After Dark to hear more of Bane.
But you're saying this Zephyr mask had like infiltrate, had little fans and stuff like that?
It's pretty sweet looking mask. And it's also like a sweet, cool look. I mean, it looks like something a superhero would wear.
There you go. That's what I'm saying, right?
They had stuff like, full-length mirrors for Zoom conferences.
Oh, really?
I don't want that. I don't want that.
No.
I don't like to be on camera if I don't have to be anyway. As I look into a camera for my podcast. But like on Zoom calls, like it's annoying enough sometimes you have to be on camera, especially if half the call has nothing to do with you.
Wait, what? Yeah.
I don't want a full body one.
What? That would be terrible.
That'd be just
what is that?
Awful. No, thank you.
Who's offering this up? Zoom?
I don't remember that. From Lavitaire is the name of the company.
I don't need to see a whole, I don't know. Maybe.
Oh, no, wait a minute. Hang on. The other thing here too is it's set up like a door setup so that if you knock on the screen, it's like somebody's knocking on your door to have a meeting with you. And then you could get up from your desk and go to the mirror and turn it on and talk to them, and they could see you as if they were standing in your doorway. No, boy. Just stop.
This is...
Stop. There's like, as it says in the article, who needs work-life balance anyway? Because they point out that it is technically always on, but it is blurred for privacy.
Oh man, like, no way. No way that's going in my house.
No, I know there's a disaster waiting to happen there. So.
Oh, sorry. Some algorithm messed up and everything unblurred.
Yeah, exactly.
So we have all this raw footage of you walking around your house.
Yep. There was stuff about like new versions of soundbars that are actually kind of mini soundbars for personal listening, like for your personal devices.
Okay.
So you can kind of set up something that's a little more personal listening without having to actually wear headphones.
All right. The only way I'm in on that is if the bass sounds good, and I don't know that they can do that. So
that's a good point.
Hey, I'm a little bit of a nerd or whatever, a little bit of a really sensitive to audio. It's got to be good audio, right? You got to have that bass.
This points out that like it's set up with ultrasound sound transmission so that basically like you have to be facing it to hear it.
Yeah, I like that. Focused, hyper-focused.
So like if you're somewhat off to the side, you're not disrupting other people necessarily.
I like that.
But yeah,
That's cool.
I'd be very curious of the sound myself as well.
Yeah.
Of course, there was the usual car tech stuff, and again, some of that stuff where you're like, this is like, 600 years in the future stuff. What are you talking about? Massage robots, which I think I did talk about on another episode. You did.
I'm still a little creeped out about that, but
I don't know that I like that. Yeah.
I thought you liked the idea of having this robot like massage you.
No, because it could strangle you. Come on. I'm the guy who thinks the robots are all going to kill us at some point.
Oh, okay. I forgot.
I'm the guy who's watched way too much science fiction. Come on. 7-foot tall gargantuan with 2 arms to massage out your knots.
No.
It can understand verbal commands, communicate data with a neural network, and will only run you $310,000.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah, I mean, who wants to pay like $300 for a massage?
I don't even know what a massage goes. That's what I was just about to say. I don't even know what a massage.
I don't know either. I haven't had one in like 10 years probably.
I guess they're in the $100 range. How many? Oh my gosh, no. Yeah, we're not even close. $310,000? No.
And then the last one here, which I actually thought this is actually pretty damn cool. For the future of farming, John Deere debuted an updated autonomous tractor.
I did hear about that.
Drives itself, 6 pairs of stereo cameras for 360-degree obstacle detection, uses a deep neural network to determine its movements.
Yep.
So that's that one. I think I could see, the farm of the future.
Keeping the farmer at the kitchen table. He doesn't have to go out. Or actually, the application that I thought was good is that it can keep going 24/7.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
It doesn't. As long as it can see a little bit about where it's going, it can just keep going and going and going.
Yep.
Yeah. Gone are the days, I guess, of the farmer waking up at the crack of dawn and working
rooster,
late into the night,
working all the way till the sun goes down.
He just has to wake up and turn it on and go back to bed.
Maybe, did you remember to turn on the tractor, honey? Yeah, I turned on the tractor,
Maybe
dear.
we should become farmers. Maybe that's what we should do.
In Belgium.
In Belgium,
so we only have to work 4 days. The tractor will do it the 5th one anyway.
Yeah. I
don't know what we're actually doing the other 4 days, but
no, we're just enjoying life, right? We're pollinating things. I don't know. What are we doing?
So how much work did you get done today? Well, I turned the tractor on.
Yep.
We'd have to start talking like that too.
Oh yeah, true. That's true.
As I stereotype all farmers.
And on that note.
That's it for us today. Thanks so much, as always, for joining us. So until next time, go turn on your tractor, move to Belgium.
Yes, we're moving to Belgium.
Go back and watch Super Bowl commercials and look for Umpires. Keep saying Empires. Robo Umpires at a sporting event near you. And as always, until next time, stay connected. TEConnect podcast is brought to you by Zebra. Healthcare budgets are pretty tight, but quality technology is also a must. I don't want to go to the hospital and see them using BlackBerries or their personal phone with this cracked screen that hasn't been updated since 2018.
Wait. If you walked into a hospital and they had a BlackBerry, that would be an issue, wouldn't it? No?
I would think so.
Yeah, okay.
Wouldn't you?
Continue.
Okay, well, help your customers on both fronts. I don't know if that's really an issue, but if it is, help them out with Zebra's TC21 and TC26 healthcare mobile computers. They're the ultimate cost-effective devices providing all the features that non-clinical healthcare workers need to communicate, document, and stay connected from anywhere on campus or beyond. Choose from Wi-Fi only or cellular options.
Can't do that.
BlackBerry cannot do that. BlackBerry can't do a lot of things.
Yeah.
Choose from Wi-Fi only or cellular options with Zebra's leading voice solutions and mobility DNA tools. BlackBerry's not a sponsor of our podcast, are they? Okay, just making sure. I don't know who's merged with who these days. To deploy healthcare-ready 5-inch display devices with easily removed batteries and a wide selection of potential accessories. The TC26 also now supports Citizens Band Radio Service, CBRS, for use in large areas with wireless coverage.
Yep, huge in healthcare.
You don't want to try to contact your teammate and their Palm Pilot.
Palm Pilot?
Has spotty reception.
Is that where you went with the Palm Pilot?
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
I thought maybe a Razor, but Razor kind of made a comeback.
Well, and that was Motorola, so...
That's a good point, yeah. Thank you, Zebra. Sorry I couldn't get that document you sent. I'm on my flip phone and the storage is filled with ringtones. Remember when you used to download a ringtones?
Yes. Oh, yes.
We had just phones full of ringtones and random pictures.
But that's all you could do.
I know. Yeah. Man, that was just an awful time.
We've come a long way.
We have. To learn more, find plenty of helpful sales tools and a video overview. Check out the link in the show notes.